The dust has settled on yet another transfer window at Luton Town, and I'm here to review our window with my co-host, Mark Ryman. How are you getting on today, Mark?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Ollie. How are you?
I'm doing all right, and I can't say I'm excited to review this transfer window. It's one that sort of divided the fan base. Some people saying, we've come out the window with a weaker squad, and some people saying trust the process at the end of the day.
Well, I thought you were going to say at that point that some people were saying we came up with a stronger squad, because that certainly isn't the case. I mean, let's be honest, nobody really expected to come out with a stronger squad. You're going to lose Barkley. I don't think anyone thought that we were going to keep Barkley in the Championship. I didn't think we were going to keep Barkley in the Prem. Lokonga was always going to go as a lone player as well. You're not replacing them. So, fine. We know that. Have the club done as much as possible to ensure that we're going to be pushing towards the top six? I don't think so. I think we've missed out on a number of really promising signings that wouldn't have broken the bank, at least if we believe some of the supposed fees. And I think particularly in the last couple of weeks of the window, there's at least a bit more business we could and should have done, considering the amount of money we gained from sales.
Very true. I made a point in the post-match phone-in that you weren't there for, and I'm actually proud of this point. It was great. So quoting Moneyball, I said, to paraphrase, you can't replace Ross Barkley, but you can rebuild a Ross Barkley in the aggregate. And the aggregate being, we should have brought in someone like Jed Wallace. He was one that we were linked to. He's one that Luton Town and I believe Nathan Jones have been chasing for years. We tried to get him when he went to West Brom. Obviously, we missed out because financially there was no way we could compete with West Brom. But we have the defensive midfielders in. And essentially to sort of rebuild a Ross Barkley in the team, or what Ross Barkley gave us, it had to be Jed Wallace. He was the only one that could have given us that attacking sort of nous from midfield, the passes, the dead balls. It was the only way to really replace him.
Well, 100%. As you said, it's all about the aggregate when it comes to replacing players, and I was really excited when we signed Shandon Baptiste because it was the starting point of doing that. Maybe not Barkley, maybe Lokonga, etc. Although I think for me, from what I've seen of Shandon Baptiste, very impressive, but doesn't break up the play that Lokonga did as much, not quite being utilised in the same way. I couldn't agree more about Jed Wallace. I think he's a great player. As you said, he's someone that Nathan Jones unashamedly was interested in for a long time as well. And he's got a bit of nous about how to win games, which we've clearly forgotten to do. He's got experience of the league. He knows how to win games. And people that I saw online were talking about his age. He's 30 years old. We're not talking, Snodgrass age. Although he obviously did a job for us, but we're not talking about that. He's 30. He's got at least a good couple of years left of his ability, and I think for the reported fee of what was it, about 750k up to
it's nothing. It's nothing.
Well, considering we sold Ogbene in the same week for again reported 8 million or rising to £8 million fee, then for me, that's a no-brainer. So I don't know what's happened there, if indeed any of the rumours that were in for him at all are to be believed. But I couldn't agree more. He's someone that we should have leapt at the chance to get.
Yeah, very true. But shall we tuck into the actual incomings and outgoings? But before we do that, if you love the content from the OK Football channel, which is the fastest growing Luton Town channel on YouTube at the minute, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for even more Luton Town content. Also, a big thanks to our audio partners, Black Star Amplification and Carry On, for making sure that we sound absolutely fantastic. And also a big thanks to the record shop in Amersham for sponsoring this podcast. Essentially, If you are a vinyl collector, go down there, check it out. It's just like a big old cave filled with vinyl and CDs, and they have a wall full of guitars. It's tremendous. Musical instruments are plenty. It's so good. Check it out. Mention our show name, and you will get a discount. Just be a nice person about it. All right, time to tuck into some transfers. So we'll do. John, do transfers in or transfers out first?
Yeah, let's talk in.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
so
let's go with it.
you've already mentioned Shanda Baptiste, who was a free transfer from Brentford, and building on what you've said, I've been impressed with him. He is definitely a way of an aggregate replacement of Lokonga, but I do think he would work better in a three-man midfield.
Yeah, 100%. I think it will give him the freedom to play the passes like he did for Adebayo for the golden chance against QPR. We want him at that end of the pitch, in that gap between the box and the centre circle. We've got a player like Nakamba behind him, and that will, really, I think, allow him to show his quality. But I am really pleased with him. I was at the time, I was excited about him, and Brentford fans at the time had said, if it wasn't for his injury record, then they would have probably kept him. So, yeah, it was definitely a really exciting and promising start.
Yeah, well, it's a recurring theme with these transfers, these incomings. It's certainly quality over quantity. Like where as we go through each one, you can see with the names on the list, it's all quality. Even Liam Walsh, who's not going to be a nailed on starter, he's shown he's still absolute quality. He really is. I just wish there was just a tiny bit more quantity to it. But going on to another quality player, Ruel Walters, signed from Arsenal after he declines their offer of a contract. So it's going to a tribunal to set a compensation. And I hope that we absolutely rake them over the coals on this one and end up paying, a disgustingly low fee. But look, a tribunal and also a player from a Cat 1 academy, you just know it's going to be quite a large fee. Hopefully not too large, because knowing Gary Sweet, he'll probably try and negotiate it or send the bill back. Who knows? But what were your thoughts about Ruel Walters? He's impressed me a lot.
Yeah, I think out of most of the players overall, including the players we had existing, I think he has probably been the most impressive and consistent in the games that he's played. Obviously, he missed out, didn't he, when we moved to Ogbene against Preston, I think it was initially. I think he missed out in that game.
Yeah, he didn't deserve to miss out.
Game? Yeah, so it was that game that he missed out. McGuinness came in. That's right. Sorry, I'm losing track of the games themselves because they often have a similar ending. But yeah, he's been really exciting. And what I've liked is he's been brave going forward. Both him and Zach Nelson, in parts, have shown similar qualities in that respect. As with a lot of the players, just needs to work on his final product, but he's a teenager. It's going to hopefully come. But yeah, I've been really pleased with both going forward and tracking back as well.
Yeah, and a massive shout out to you mentioned Zach Nelson. Yeah. So he joins Ruel Walters in the England under-21s, England under-20 squad, and that is absolutely fantastic. What a month it's been for Zach Nelson. First professional start, first professional goal, and now first international call-up. It is tremendous, and I'm delighted. I'm absolutely delighted for him. Tremendous prospects, and I hope we just, pin him down to a long-term deal. Right. The next one, Mark McGuinness. So this was a substantial fee, but lower than a club record. The club were quite cryptic about this.
Yeah, it's difficult to tell, isn't it, with the old undisclosed. I don't know whether it is a club record or not. Do we know that for sure? I mean,
they wrote in the in the press release that It was a significant fee, but not a club record. So that's still Ryan Giles.
Well done. We give that. I'm sure he's really pleased with that as well.
Yeah.
Ryan Giles with being the club record.
He was also voted worst ever player on the Luton Towns subreddit the other day.
I think that's slightly harsh. Yeah. It's been coming for a while. That's probably the worst kept secret in our transfer business. That had been lingering on for ages, and obviously at the time we were clamouring for a centre back as well because half of ours were unfit, and then they all like buses turned up at once. And he is the size of a bus as well. I like the fact. I mean, he's obviously Arsenal academy as well, so he plays a certain brand of football, which is clearly what we want to play. And I thought he had a really good debut against Preston, and was pretty calm on the ball. He had an absolute howler against QPR for their first goal. He certainly wasn't the only one to blame, but he could have done far more to sort that and head the ball away. I think that's been said already by in a few bits of post match, but we'll give him the benefit of the doubt, and it's not as if he's the only one making mistakes at the moment. But he's promising. I know that Cardiff fans were unhappy to see him go, and I think Rob Edwards has alluded at the fact that his leadership qualities are one of the reasons why we signed him. So maybe that's something that we'll look at in terms of captaincy going forward as well.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. We've only seen him for 2 games. And next up, Liam Walsh, who we've seen a little bit more of in, fits and starts, off the bench. He has some really nice touches about him. He seems like another type of Jordan Clark, who comes short, get the ball, move with the ball, roam upfield, lay it off, nice 1-2s, all that. And he came with a hell of an injury record, but so far, so good.
Yeah, what a game he had against QPR in the Cup, spraying balls left, right and centre. I don't think he had quite the same impact when he came on in the league game. But yeah, he certainly shows that we've got a player that can play those big diagonals across, which is what we're going to need if we're going to keep relying on the wingers or wing backs to get involved in getting the ball into the box. So he's definitely needed. And let's hope that his injury record improves, which actually we've had quite a bit of success with, despite some of our poor injury record with others. Often some of those that had been injured a lot, like Doughty, have done pretty well in that regard. So fingers crossed.
And Mengi as well.
Yeah,
it's always the ones that come to us with a crazy injury record, and they somehow end up being our most consistent players. And then it's the ones who have never had an injury or broken a nail in their life, and then all of a sudden they're like rupturing their meniscus and whatever. Getting bone bruising, that's a new one on me. I'm excited about Liam Walsh.
Yeah, me too. I think if he stays fit, he'll be very exciting for us.
And one that we can't even talk about because he somehow managed to get injured in his first ever training session for the club. It's Tom Krause, a loan from Mainz.
Yeah, I think from what I've seen of him, he's exactly the kind of defensive midfielder that we're going to need. And let's be honest, we're talking about injury record. Nakambas ain't great and wasn't great before he came to us either. I would love for him to stay fit for the season, especially after seeing that 45 minutes in the first half against QPR in the Cup showed everything we were missing. But I think Krause will do that job as well. Neither Nakamba and Krause are particularly well known for spraying the passes, but that's similar to what you were talking about in terms of replacing, our midfielders in Barkley and Lokonga with more than one player. So that's okay if Shandon Baptiste is further in front, or Walsh is further in front to be able to do that. But yeah, I mean, he looks like he fills a gap, and it looks as if we've got the option to buy as well. Rob Edwards was cryptic about whether that depends if we get promoted or not, but it's rumoured to be about €5 million, I think was the rumour or quoted if we wanted to buy him, which isn't going to break the bank, let's be honest.
Oh, well, it would break our bank, wouldn't it?
Yeah, perhaps, yeah.
Yeah, look, I haven't even seen anything from him yet. Let's wait and see. Hopefully he's fit following the international break. But it's one that really excites me, and it excites me even more if we do change our formation to play a three in the middle. I dream of him and Nakamba sitting, and a Chong or Liam Walsh or just anyone in front, actually carving out chances. It's the only way forward for us, really. Especially, it will just make us a lot more solid. There's also Lamine Fanny, who was an undisclosed midfielder that we signed on deadline day, the only business we did on deadline day from AIK, and it was thought to be in the region of £3 million. He's 20, he doesn't need to be registered, and he's going to be joining up with the team in January.
There's nothing more that cheers you up after a gutting 2-1 defeat to QPR on deadline day than signing a player last minute that can't even come to your club until January. But look, yeah. I mean, yes, he by all, there's lots of amazing kind of reviews that from the fans that have said. I saw something online that suggested he was a Yaya Toure. So
yeah, I read that as well. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll take that all day of the week. And he could be a very promising signing, but when we were looking for at least a replacement for Ogbene, maybe a couple of loans from the Premier League to just sign one player that can't even play for us until the middle of the season. Yeah, I wasn't in a great mood on Friday night, I'll be honest. I just about stayed up until 11 to see that come through. But yeah, well, we'll wait and see, I guess, won't we?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one because, including Lamine Fanny, so that gives us 23 senior pros and 5 players, including the Fanny Meister, who don't need registration. So that's 2 spots in the team. Sure, one of them might be taken up by Tom Lockyer if he is to come back. He mentioned in his program notes that he is hoping to make a return. Yeah. But the thing is, now we're just it's such an unbalanced squad because we have so many centre backs. We have no wing backs. And up top, what we have, Brownie's out injured, Elijah, Carlton, Woodrow, and Taylor.
Yeah.
But it's just quite an unbalanced squad, especially when you look at the wing backs, which are crucial for how Rob Edwards wants to play. In left wing, you have Alfie Doughty. Right wing back, you have Ruel Walters. Who else do you have behind Ruel Walters? I keep forgetting Daiki Hashioka, who's out for God knows how many months with that injury sustained in pre-season. It's mind-boggling.
Exactly. I don't know whether you've done this, but if you've ever gone to the supermarket when you're hungry, whenever I do this, I'll just come home and I've just bought crisps. Right, that's it. And it feels like Gary Sweet has gone into the transfer market just thinking about centre-backs and all that. And then realised, oh shit, I've actually got other positions that we need to fill as well in the forwards. I mean, Ogbene we sell for 8 million and don't replace him feels like an absolute misstep. Really
haven't even talked about Andros Townsend, mate.
Of course.
Yeah, before we move on to
actually made any money on that?
Who knows? The club haven't communicated anything. There's been no communication. The only word on the matter has been from Andros Townsend, where he said, I don't know where my contract is, because obviously we have given up his player registration so he can transfer to Antalyaspor. And I've been practicing the name, obviously. And
that's good.
And now they can't register him. So he's in limbo. He's a free agent, I suspect. I don't know. But I don't... look, if there was nothing else, I would sign Andros Townsend back for 6 months until January because we are just so light in that area. I don't think his knees can really hold out, though.
No, but he offers us a bit more than just that as well. The leadership behind the scenes we could really do with. I mean, this is a running theme that, we are missing leaders in that team. The obvious reason is Locks being out. Morris, I think, tries, and I like Morris. I really like his attitude up front, but he's struggling for form himself, which is a problem. And playing up front, I always think, is a difficult position to try and lead a team. I don't really like strikers as captains generally. I don't really like goalkeepers as captains for a similar reason. I think
It's
it's
got to be in the
middle of the pitch.
middle, in the middle of the pitch, or centre back, so they can actually
Yeah.
see the entire pitch in front of them. I completely agree with you. Unless you're like an Alan Shearer who literally leads by
Yeah.
example by like banging goals in continuously.
Exactly.
But before we move on to actually talking about the transfers out, let's get your score out of 10 for the transfers in.
Well, I think for the transfers that we got, we talk about quality. I think the quality of them has been very good. We've just not recruited in quite enough. I was hoping for at least a couple of loan signings, so I'm probably going to give it a 6 out of 10. I think that's erring on a slightly more positive side, but I'll say a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, so I agree with you about the loans. Like, I don't understand why Rob Edwards was getting so chummy with all the Premier League managers, building those relationships, if we weren't going to actually sign any Premier League loanees. We were actually discussing this before we hit record about teams that have successfully got promoted, teams that have actually done really well with a basis of Premier League loanees. There was Frank Lampard's Derby County, where he had Mark Gahey, he had Mason Mount. You know, those players from the Premier League who weren't quite good enough for the Premier League at the time. Then you had Nottingham Forest, who had, I think they got promoted with 6 loanees in their team.
They did, yeah.
I'm not saying load up our squad with loanees, but I am saying 1 or 2. We had the space, 1 or 2, and we had that relationship with these teams in the Premier League. Why couldn't we have them? Why couldn't we get them? So for that reason, purely because we haven't filled up our squad, I'm going for a 5 out of 10. I know it's really brutal, but you know, it would be a lot worse if like these players hadn't performed. You know, Shandon, the Ruel, Liam Walsh, and Mark McGuinness. You know, it'd be a lot worse because we did have gaps that we needed. In all fairness, I feel losing Ogbene and Townsend, you know, we're unbalanced now. We really are, because Ogbene, he was also our option on the left. Right, transfers out then. So we talked about Andros. Ross Barkley, we've talked about Ross Barkley. I'll run through the release list. So there's Dan Potts, Luke Berry, Gabe Osho, Admiral Musquay, thank God he's gone, Fred Onyedinma, Elliot Thorpe, and Louis Watson. I'm going to start with those last two because they reek of wasted potential for us. They really do. Louis Watson especially, who looked really decent. Elliot Thorpe, who never got a fair shake at the stick. And when he did play, he was just shoehorned in at right wing back.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. I would say to counter it, they both had loan spells out, and neither have pulled up trees in either of them. I know Charlton, he was completely frozen out. Louis Watson at one point, wasn't he? I know he had some good performances before that. Thorpe, Burton. I think Thorpe was the most recent.
Yeah, he dislocated his shoulder though. Right. He scored an absolute screamer one of his first games, and then he dislocated his shoulder. He was out.
Yes, that's right, the most recent one. So look, I agree. When I saw Elliot Thorpe play, Cambridge in the FA Cup,
he got an assist.
Yeah, he was good. He was good. Looked really positive in that game. I think Louis Watson, we all thought was a really good technical player, but maybe lacked a bit of strength in that position back in the midfield. But yeah, I don't think anyone's going to be too sad about them leaving. But, let's face it, we don't have necessarily the infrastructure to keep these players and to be able to get them up to the level until we start improving the whole youth setup, which, to be fair to the club, that is the aim and that is what they're doing. It's the council, particularly, that have scuppered us for some of that. But until that starts happening, it's going to be difficult, isn't it, to get a lot of these players up to now where we're aiming for at the top of the Championship, pushing towards the Premier League.
Yeah, and from that list, I would say Gabe Osho is the only one that I'm actually sad to see go. However, we've replaced him. I think, like Ruel Walters can do a job at right centre back. I feel Mark McGuinness is probably overall a much better centre back than Gabe Osho. Gabe Osho, I like the fact that he did score vital goals from corners, and when we were actually defending, he was a good enough defender, but he always got beaten for pace. I'm thinking him getting beaten at Newcastle, him giving the ball away for a goal at Sheffield United at home, and then getting beaten for pace again, I think, by Cameron Archer on the outside. He was always a bit of a liability with the ball at his feet. Yeah.
He'd always take it a few yards too far, I think. He'd always try and look over at Riesberg or someone doing that and take it just a bit too far forward, and it end up, in the opposition's box and have to chase back quite a lot of the time, I've found.
Yeah, so from that release list, give that a score out of 10. Do you think we got rid of the right people?
Bar Berry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Berry shouldn't have gone. I think Luke Berry definitely had another season with us.
Yeah.
Definitely should have.
Yeah, the released and the sold list, I've not got any complaints about any of them, to be honest. I don't even mind Albene leaving, but
it's good money.
He wasn't replaced. Yeah, it's good money. And as you've already said, by the sounds of it, in the last year of his contract, it's very good money. No issue with any of them. I would have kept Luke Berry. So, for them leaving, give that a good 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10, something like that.
Yeah. When the retain list came out, I was thinking, I think we got a lot of this right, and I was just delighted to see Admiral Musgrave finally off the books. He's one, he had that real promising period just before AFCON, and then he came back from AFCON, and it was like he'd been space jammed. He couldn't play football anymore. Looking at the loan outs, so these ones, I'm putting them in the category of their careers are likely over at Luton Town.
Yeah.
So that's Alan Campbell, who I'm really devastated that he's done at Luton Town. He's never got a fair shake under Rob Edwards, and I feel we could use him right about now. Dion Pereira, who is just he's going backwards. Like, each of his loans are literally a level below the previous one. After setting the League Two on fire at Bradford, I thought he was going to kick on, but he just never did. And then Jack Walton, who just that, I'm not going to talk about Jack Walton, confuses me. And Ben Peppel, also another one that's absolutely confusing.
Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, the Jack Walton one was a sort of swap, wasn't it? I can't remember.
Yeah, well, we gave them Harry Eisted.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. It was Harry Eisted going to Barnsley, wasn't it? Exactly. And then we got Jack Walton, and everybody was like, "What?" And very surprising. But it's Nathan Jones and Harry Eisted, though, right?
He doesn't. Nathan Jones does not like Harry Eisted.
He shipped him off as soon as he turned up at Charlton, didn't he? He was out the door. Poor bloke.
Yeah. I want Harry Eisted to do well, because he's a very athletic goalkeeper. I feel he just needs to play some football, really.
We'll always have Chelsea.
We'll always have Chelsea. Oh, I miss Jed Steer, though. Oh, Jed Steer and his Achilles. For all of the 2 games we saw him in. So the other transfers that I've got listed out here, so we got Andros Townsend, Ross Barkley, Jake Berger, Ryan Giles, John McAtee, who we can discuss briefly, Chidozie Ogbene, who we have discussed. And so let's talk about John McAtee then. So a lot of fans were saying, John McAtee or Cauley Woodrow, who would you rather keep? And in my mind, the only answer is I would have kept John McAtee and shipped out Cauley Woodrow, but ultimately there's no one wanting to take Cauley Woodrow.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I thought John McAtee looked good in his loan spell at Barnsley last year. I think he showed a lot of promise. I think, though, if we're looking at pecking order and where he's going to sit, he was probably behind where Taylor is. And I guess at that point it's about, it would have been better to see him go out on a loan, but I get why, he would probably push for a permanent move, particularly to, restart his career. It's difficult. I understand what you're saying about Corley, Woodrow, and he's not performed as well as possible, but we know that he can do it at the level. It's a big old ask to put someone in who really hasn't seen much past League One. I know, obviously, that the kind of stock he's come from originally, but I think it's a difficult one. I'm sad to see him go. Put it that way. I'm sad to see him go.
There was more to come from him.
Yeah,
there really was, and no idea of the fee on that. Hopefully, we didn't get shafted like Bolton did with us with Cameron Jerome, because we let Cameron Jerome go, and honestly, we could have used Cameron Jerome for the rest of the season. Yeah, so hopefully, there's actually a decent fee, nice sell on, and I guess that that sums up all the moves. No point talking about Ryan Giles, because at the end of the day, it was like he wasn't even here. Yeah, but what? So to summarise, what could we have done better?
Well, I mean, I'll state the obvious. We could have done some business earlier than we did. I know what the full line is from the club, but I'm sorry, but the transfer window was open and people were doing business. I get that. Loans from the Premier League, I'd get it. If we'd have got these loans from the Prem, and then you have Wilkinson and Sweet coming out and saying we had to wait till later, all right, hold my hands up. I get that. Premier League teams aren't going to loan out their players until they've got their squad in place. But we didn't get anybody. All the players that we've bought, we could have got at any point in the window. So I don't understand why, apart from holding out or putting in ridiculously low offers. I mean, I don't know what we offered for Ben Sheaf, but I'm betting it's single millions. Isn't it? It's not.
It's like Gustavo Hamer from last season.
I don't know what that was supposedly, but
it was 3 million. I was told by a BBC Coventry reporter it was 3 million with a bunch of add-ons. He went for 15.
Yeah, which is a fair price for him. But yeah, I mean, I don't think there was a way in which Sheaf was coming to us anyway once we're back in the Championship, because
he's injured now as well.
He is injured, yeah. I don't think it's too serious, but yeah, exactly. But, fine. But if we were really interested in these players, these type of profile players, then, we need to realise that we're not going to get those players on the cheap. And to be fair, that's not kind of a bit of undercover clever, no one else has spotted them type player. Every single person, every man their dog knows what Ben Sheaf can do. Mm-hmm. So, we're not going to get bargain basement prices on them. And I get the club wanting to not stray away from the Luton model, but we have to adapt and evolve based on circumstances. We are a club with money, more money than we had. I get that we're not loaded just because of parachute payments, and I also understand that Power Court and our future is more important too. But our future is not going to be where we want it to be on the pitch if we don't start being more proactive in the transfer market. It was the same in January, and we ended up then panic buying as well. So we ended up with Daiki Hashioka, which probably was the planned transfer of the January transfer window, and then Tom Holmes and who was
Taylan Harris.
Taylan Harris. I mean, you tell me they are planned transfers. I can't see it in a million years. So I just that's my biggest takeaway. We've done business earlier. I've mentioned already that games look like we're still in pre-season, and the reason is our squads really hadn't been there for a lot of it. Some of it's unavoidable. Injuries, no one can help that. And I get we're not going to stockpile loads of defenders for that. But some of it we really could have been more proactive about,
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I know. It's interesting that you mentioned that we look in the stages of pre-season, and missing chances is a big part of pre-season. So I saw a stat earlier that Elijah Adebayo has missed 7 big chances, the most in the league so far, with a combined XG of 2.5, which means he should have definitely scored 2.5 goals. Not that he can score half a goal, and that puts him 3rd in the list.
He just doesn't want to go to Everton. Yeah. That's all it is. It's just agent. He just doesn't want to go to Everton. That's all it is.
Yeah. I think we could do better. and I'm saying do better rather than have done better, because the free agent market's still open. I would have liked to have seen us get Stuart Armstrong. I feel he would have been a perfect one to replace Barkley in the aggregate as well. Played a lot of games for Southampton last season in their promotion. However, he's gone off to the Vancouver Whitecaps, which is a real shame. But, money's money, right? So he had lots of offers from the Premier League and the Championship, and he decided to go elsewhere. But the free agent market's still open. I'm holding out hope for Dele Alli. Who knows? He's a local lad. He's from the area, so who knows if he wants to come. And to be honest, if he is serious about getting his football career back on track, like Luton have shown that we are the place to go to, get your football career back on track. I just don't see him dropping down to the Championship. I just don't think it's going to happen for him in the Prem.
Yeah. Ross Barkley, get on the blower.
Yeah, Agent
favour.
Barkley.
Yeah,
He'll do
exactly.
it as soon as he's done playing with the under-21s for Aston Villa.
Yeah. Saw that.
That's disgraceful.
Gutting.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably everything summarised from Luton Towns transfer window. If you've loved this content from the OK Football Show, please like this video, subscribe to our channel. There's so much more Luton Town content coming. And a big thank you to our audio partners, Black Star Amplification and Carry On, and a massive thank you to our podcast sponsors, The Record Shop in Amersham. Go check them out in Amersham. If you collect vinyl, you will not be disappointed. But I think we should look ahead to this really depressing international break in the relegation zone. And as always, come on, you Hatters.